Thank you so much, Cody, for sharing amazing reflection. Uh, it's very rare to hear the story of history-making speeches told from the inside with such an honest. Thank you so much for that. Before we invite questions from the floor, I love to spend a few minutes in conversation with you, if that's okay. Cody, you received advice from President Obama to find silence. In the world of flux of information with so many clips created by AI, how did the Obama's advice influence the way you write the speeches?
That's such a good question. I don't even know where to start with it. The story is I had written a State of the Union address, which is it's not a fun speech to write. It's just something the president has to do every year. It's an hour-long policy address that nobody gets excited about, and yet we do it anyway. And he told me, he said, "This is everything's here. It's good, but it's just too dense. I need some quiet moments and some humor and some emotional moments. And find me." He used Miles Davis as the way to get into it. He said, "Do you listen to jazz?" And I told him, "Not really." And he said, "Well, go listen to Miles Davis, because what makes Miles Davis great, it's the notes he doesn't play. It's the space in between. It's the quiet moments. So go listen to Miles Davis and give me some quiet moments." And that's a pretty profound question now. I mean, when I was writing that speech 10 years ago, the world was so much different than it is today. We didn't have to deal with AI, and social media hadn't become what it is. And I think one of the biggest challenges we face, for those of us who care about democracy and participation, is we have allowed ourselves to have these tiny attention spans and no shared reality anymore. You can just have, you look at our own administration saying, you don't need vaccines, they don't work, or whatnot. It's constant. And without a shared reality that people can operate from, a democracy doesn't function. So in some ways, you need to get back to your question, you need to look inside. You need to think hard about what's true. I think we need to be teaching our children better critical thinking skills as they look at social media, AI, to how do you figure out what is true? This isn't something we've had to grapple with for most of our lives. Just to take an example, you look at Elon Musk's AI, Grok or Grok, I don't know how to pronounce it. A story came out last week that he is actively making it more conservative. Well, how does that make it artificial intelligence anymore? That means that somebody is actually putting their fingers on the scales. And when we're feeding ideologically based answers to our kids and calling it artificial intelligence, how are they going to know what's true and what's not? So when it comes to speech writing and communications and trying to lead people, you got to be real careful. You can't play fast and loose with facts. You got to look for what's true and honest, and you got to convince people. Again, like I said in my remarks, you can tell people over and over and over that climate change is real and the science proves it, and they're just like, I'm not so sure. You got to find a way to connect with them on a human and emotional level, and it's really hard. You can tell by the length of my answer. This is a big challenge. It's really, really hard when you've got half the country that's just not going to believe anything you say, and AI telling you something different, and you don't even know if what you're looking at was created by a human or not. I don't have a good answer to your question, if you can tell.
That example with Miles Davis was wonderful. What makes Miles Davis so great is the notes that he does not play. I mean, that's very something that we have to think about, because with the world of flux of information, AI creating thousands and thousands of clips, it's maybe the time that we actually pause the moment in the silence and really deeply think about what we really want to say and engage with the audience. That brings out a interesting curiosity that before you start writing, is there your personal ritual that you do, like coffee, music, or total silence?
Yeah, part of being a writer is you have to have an incredible ability to procrastinate. And I can procrastinate as well as anybody. And part of the reason I do that is to force a shorter amount of time on myself to write. If I have 5 days to write a speech, that's too much time. So I'm going to procrastinate for 2 days. Now I only have 3 days to write a speech. So procrastination is part of my ritual. But yeah, I need to have a clean desk. I need to have coffee. I need to have at least a 2 hour runway where I can work. And I use the focus mode in my iPhone to just shut off notifications from pretty much everyone but my wife, just to try to clear your own brain and work. And I used to write best at night when the world gets quiet and helps you out until I had little kids, and now I can't stay up late anymore. Now I work best in the morning. But those are my rituals. And it's funny, writers always ask other writers that same question because none of us like our own process. So we always hope somebody else has a better one we can learn from.
Thank you for sharing your personal information. That this kind of answer definitely we cannot get from the AI. I don't want to take too much chances from the audience. So, and I'm sure that you all have plenty of questions. So let's hear directly from the audience. If you have any questions, raise your hands. And
Hi, I'm an interpreter and translator for K-pop concerts. My concern for all the speech and all different scripts is I'm trying to convey the meaning that the writer wants to convey, but it's difficult for me to understand fully what they're trying to say. For example, right here, the translation and interpretation for your speech might like convey different meaning from what you really want to say. Is there any way that is there any concerns when you talk in different language, or how do you cope with that difference? Like,
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you first. Your English is great, so let me ask how was the AI translation? Was it good? Could you tell?
I mean, for this translation, I think it's pretty great. I'm being threatened to lose my job and stuff.
Yeah.
But the thing is, some of the Korean words were written in Korean, but it's still meant in English. So it was a little hard to understand in Korean.
Yeah, of course.
So I was wondering, how do you cope with that differences? How do you work with the different staffs and conferences on like to convey what you want to really say?
It's super hard. It was easier when I worked at the White House because we could just call up our embassy here and talk with people who'd been living here for 30 years. And we could say, give me some local poetry or some great local stories, some phrases in Korean. Also, tell me what not to say if there are things to avoid. So that was much, much easier. When it's just me, that's hard. I went down to the front desk in the office today in the hotel just to make sure that my pronunciation of the two Korean words I used was okay. You don't know what's going to connect and what's not. And I also didn't know what to expect when I came here. I didn't know how many of you would be able to follow along with me or with reading. And if you're reading a translation, you miss the humor, you miss applause lines. So it's tough. For you, I worry about AI, of course, too. I think I've been doing this long enough that my job will be okay, but I teach at a university, and I worry that my students won't see a reason to learn speech writing if somebody tells them, why would I hire a brand new speechwriter when I can use AI? It's a real challenge. So for you, I think, I don't know if it's possible, but if somebody had connected, if you were doing the translation today, if somebody had connected us in advance, I think that would have done a lot. Because I think what AI can't replace yet is actual human connection and emotion and empathy and understanding. It can translate okay, but you need that emotional translation too. So I think it does require all of us to work a little bit harder to make the human element the most important element. And for someone like you, it's probably impossible to speak with every speaker in advance, but I think it would make a big difference. And I think that's the type of thing we have to focus on. I worry a lot, at least in the United States, about people are just telling us, AI's here, you have to learn it or you're going to get left behind. And the people saying that are the people who run these AI companies, right? It's like, there's nothing new about that in the sense that forever people have said, you have to buy these jeans or else you're going to look ugly and no one will ever like you. You have to eat this product or else you're going to be fat and nobody will ever like you. Now it's like you have to use AI or you're going to lose your job. But it's the people running these companies saying it that want more money and less regulation and people to use their product. There's this someday maybe it will be truly great at all these things, but it's not yet. So I find it offensive that that's the answer we're getting from people on high, that you just got to deal with it, where there's not more of a think that's like, okay, how do we deal with it, right? Because there's going to be a lot more unrest and disillusionment if we don't help people navigate this transition, if we just leave people to fend for themselves. And again, you can tell by the length of my answer, I don't have a good answer for you. But I do think it is that human element that's going to be truly irreplaceable.
Your speech was very fascinating, and I want to ask you a question. To write a good speech, what do you feel is the most important for the four fundamentals?
Well, let's see. Like I said, first, you got to talk like a human being, and by that I mean be colloquial, be funny. You just don't worry about, just hitting the right words. Hit the right heartstrings. And think about your audience, what they've been through, what they've come to see you say, and what, most importantly, you want them to leave with. And too many people kind of get caught up in thinking, well, this is what I should say. If I don't say this, I'll get in trouble. I think that's the wrong way to do it. Like, really take some time and think, what's the story I want to tell? To have a captive audience is an incredible gift. One that I'm very grateful for and that I'll never get over, that people actually come to see me speak. So thank you. But to have that is amazing, and you don't want to squander it. So think really hard. What's the story you want to tell, and what do you want this audience to leave and go do? Thanks for your question. There's another hand in the middle.
Thank you for the inspiring talk. My question is about what I consider the trickiest subject in political speech, the public apology. How do you wisely balance between the natural desire to protect one's ego and the crucial need to calm the public anger? I wonder that.
Listen, I think, and I think most people in power would disagree with me. I think apologizing is a good thing if you've done something wrong. You don't see it a lot from corporations if there's a massive product failure. I don't see it as a sign of weakness to apologize when an apology is warranted. I see it as a sign of strength. In politics, your opponents will try to flay you as being weak, but I think there's nothing weak about it. If you've screwed up, if your country's done something awful that it needs to atone for, if your product as a company killed people, or there's some other black mark there, I think people always find it. I think they're more willing to support you if you do the right thing and say you're sorry and offer solutions to move forward. I mean, people can tell if you're being disingenuous or dishonest too, right? If an apology is warranted and you just say, you kind of go in the passive voice and say mistakes were made, right? Or we didn't do anything wrong. People have very sophisticated BS detectors. They know when that's nonsense. So I really don't see anything that's weak about apologizing when an apology is required.
Would you write a speech for Donald Trump if chances are given?
Yeah, I'd write his resignation speech. No, I would not. I would not write for him. It's funny, I have a friend in the United Kingdom who I think he's written for like 9 different prime ministers at this point. They're civil servants who stay forever. We don't have that tradition. We just, on Inauguration Day, one White House leaves, the other one comes in. No, I can't write for somebody who basically is fundamentally opposed to everything that I believe in or care about.
It's a simple question. How did you get the job?
How did I get the job? It's good. It's a great question. I never wanted to be a speechwriter. It was not a pathway that I'd ever considered. And I worked in our Senate our legislative body for Ted Kennedy, who was the youngest Kennedy brother. And I was just doing policy work for him. And I happened to be in his hometown of Boston for the Democratic political convention in 2004. And that's when Barack Obama gave a speech that took him from a completely anonymous state legislator to, the next president in 17 minutes. And I happened to be there watching it, and I was just electrified by it. I said, "This is incredible. This is somebody who talks about politics and public service the way that I want it to be." And so I kind of devoted myself to learning how to write speeches. I asked my boss at the time, Senator Kennedy, if I could write some speeches for him. And when the time came and Obama ran for president, a friend connected me with his speechwriter, a man named John Favreau, and he was desperate, so he hired me. And then I just stuck around for 14 years. So the quick answer to your question is I just decided it was something I wanted to do, and I worked really hard at learning it. And I made sure I was the first person in the office every morning, and I was the person who turned out the lights at night. And I just said yes to everything and worked really hard to get better at it. And even then, it took me years until I was actually good at it.
Thank you so much for your insights from your experience of writing for Barack Obama. You mentioned collaboration is an essential part of writing great speeches. It's something that is not taught normally for writing, but how did you train as a writer? Like, how did you incorporate the element of collaboration? And what's your advice for someone who cannot afford this collaboration to write better?
Do you have any friends?
Yes.
There you go. You can work with your friends and practice with your friends. It is a hard thing to teach and learn. I mean, it's very different from just normal writing because, like I said, you are writing for an audience that's listening, that can't read what you're saying. And it does take time. I don't think I understood it was collaborative until I'd been doing it for a few years. I was a junior speechwriter writing for Obama, and I was kind of mimicking what I thought he would say. So in a sense, I was kind of like AI my first couple years. I was just like, okay, I think he'd say this, I'm gonna try it. I didn't really, until I became a more senior speechwriter, that's when I started spending time with him on a daily basis, and that's when I realized this is a collaborative type of writing. So the way I teach it to my students is I make them write for each other and then get up and speak what somebody else has written for you. It teaches you a lot. It's really, really hard. So if you're interested in it, find a friend who will give you a little bit of time, come up with a topic, and sit down and write a speech. Have that person read it and say, I would say this, I wouldn't say this, how about this idea to make it better? And then maybe they can actually get up and read it, even if it's just for you. And the first time you hear someone else read something that you've written out loud, you're gonna feel a little electricity on your neck because it's really, really cool. And that's another technique to become a better writer or speechwriter. When you write a speech, even if it's for yourself, stand up and deliver it, even if you're alone. If you walked by the hotel this morning, you might have seen me in my window practicing this speech. Because when you read it out loud, it sounds different than when you're writing it down. You will find that arguments might not make sense. You will find that sentences might be too long. You might decide that the rhythm needs an extra syllable or one fewer syllable. And it all just comes with practice. So take any opportunity you can to write. Opinion pieces for a newspaper are pretty close to a speech. It's making an argument. Now it's not for a listening audience, but it's a great way to distill a short argument. And just keep at it because the world needs more good speechwriters. There are lots of lousy speakers who could use your help.
Thank you for all the questions. We love to take more questions, but the clock is ticking. So before we close, could you talk a little bit about your book? I just ordered it from the Amazon and I just received it yesterday. It's not in Korean yet, but I'm sure that all the audience here would love to see your book in Korean also.
I would love to see
Yes.
my book in Korean. I will push my publisher to do that. It's not up to me. I love the book. I didn't want to write a memoir. I didn't want to just write a flattering book of what we did in the White House. The book takes place over just 10 days in 2015, where a whole series of extraordinary events happened in America. That shooting in Charleston and Obama's eulogy, our Supreme Court ruling in favor of our healthcare law and ruling in favor of marriage equality. And not all these things translate into different cultures. But for us, it was a lot of progress and change and upheaval in just a 10-day span. And to take people through, how we wrote all those speeches, but also how the country kind of grappled with that incredible change. And in some ways, we're living through the backlash to that change right now. I wanted that historical document, and I wanted it to be a book that excited young people and encouraged young people to go into public service and to do something bigger than yourself, because it is a worthy and noble endeavor, even when your side loses. It's pretty extraordinary. And I wanted my kids to grow up, knowing that when America was at its best, that's what it was like. So it's also a really fun read. So thank you for plugging it.
Thank you. I think it was a very timely reminder for all of us sitting here at this room, especially when we think about Korean politics, the tense atmosphere we face right now. It's a good reminder that language is just about information. It's about connection, trust, and hope, just like Cody shared with us today. Maybe all leave here today with a deeper appreciation for words we choose and the power they have to navigate and shape our era of great transition. Thank you for having us here today, Cody. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
감사합니다.